Welcome to a look at early craftsmanship, an introduction to stone tool technologies. Stone implements fashioned by the hands of our ancestors played an important part in human evolution. Beginning millions of years ago, carefully selected fine-grained stone was shaped, by a process called flint knapping, into tools performing an increasing variety of tasks. Over time, these tools became more specialized and often elegant in their workmanship. Archaeologists postulate this growing skill is evidence of increasing cognition, which is the process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. More than 2 million years after the first tools were made, humans were fashioning stone, bone, and ivory for an ever more complex uses. Around 35,000 years ago, the first examples of sculpture appeared, followed soon thereafter by the advent of cave painting. Many animals use tools. Sea otter use rocks to break open shellfish, and chimpanzees use rock to crack nuts. Chimps also strip bark from small branches and poke them into termite nests for a snack. Early hominins may have used wooden sticks and animal bone for digging. These are similar enough to probes used by recent humans that scientists assume our last common ancestor with chimpanzees probably made simple wooden tools. However, such materials don't fossilize, and we have no trace of them. Let's distinguish use from manufacture. It is one thing to pick up a stick or a rock to accomplish some task. It is quite another thing to shape that rock or stick for the task. We can show individual chimpanzees, familiar with rocks as nutcrackers, how to make stone tools, but they do not spontaneously impart this skill to others. Also, there are anatomical differences between human and chimpanzee hands, differences with implications for tool manufacture. We share what is called the power grip, but chimps do not have the precision grip as we do, the ability to hold a delicate object firmly between thumb and forefinger without damaging it. It is clear then humans were the first and so far the only animals to make implements of stone. We have been tool makers for more than 2 million years, and were tool users for almost 1 million years before that, perhaps all the way back to the common ancestor of the hominin and chimpanzee lineages. In the 1930s, Louis Leakey went to Africa looking for stone tools after learning numerous flint tools were lying on the surface at a place called Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. He found many examples of an industry he christened Oldowan. This earliest manufactured stone technology was a practically oriented toolkit of haphazardly shaped chopping, cutting, and scraping implements. The simplicity of these earliest tools suggests they were more likely unspecialized byproducts of a habit of shaping stone, less likely tools designed for a specific task. How is a simple Oldowan tool made? Take what is called a core, a pebble or rounded stone up to several centimeters in size, and striking the core with a hammer stone at the proper angle causes flakes to detach, leaving a sharpened edge on the core useful for chopping or scraping. The detached flakes are also sharp and can be used for cutting. How do we know the uses to which these ancient tools were put? It is difficult to say with the Oldowan tools, but for later industries we infer uses by analyzing microwear. Microscopic scratches and abrasions, also duller or more light reflective surfaces, left on the stone depending upon its use. Animal hide, flesh, bone, cut grass, or being tumbled about in a fast-moving stream, each leaves characteristic traces we can interpret by comparing these individual signatures with microwear left on stones archaeologists have tested. Not just any stone will do as a core to be worked. It is clear even the earliest tool makers learned to be selective in the choice of raw materials. Note the hill called Nyber Soit on the horizon, 7 kilometers distant. 2 million years ago, tool makers hiked to this hill for basalt rocks. These they carried back to the shore of an ancient lake, now Olduvai Gorge. Older industries like the Oldowan persisted and remained in the tool kit long after new technologies emerged. Newer did not replace older, newer supplemented older. Archaeologists call the period within which stone was the primary material for tools, before the use of metal, the Paleolithic period, or, in Africa, the Stone Age. This very long period is divided into Lower, Middle, and Upper Paleolithic, corresponding to what archaeologists working in Africa call the Early, Middle, and Late Stone Age. Louis Leakey sought the bones of the hominins who made the numerous tools he was finding, but for several decades was unsuccessful in this search. Then in 1959 his wife Mary discovered Zinj, Paranthropus boisei, and Leakey believed the toolmaker had been found. 5 years later, however, bones designated Homo habilis were found in sediments of similar age, about 2 million years old, and Leakey claimed the earliest member of the Homo lineage was the toolmaker, not the less brainy Paranthropus boisei. There were difficulties in this claim. Neither Zinj nor Homo habilis could be associated uniquely with the tools. Despite this ambiguity, the Leakey lead was followed by later scientists in assuming the earliest toolmaker was Homo. Many years after the Leakeys ceased working at Olduvai and many hundreds of miles to the north, artifacts dated at 2.6 million years were found in 1992 at Gona, Ethiopia, but no hominin remains were found. A few years later at Hadar, Oldowan tools were found, 2.3 million years old, and fossils of early Homo were found nearby. The Gona and Hadar finds were the earliest stone tools to that time and seem to confirm the long-held assumption they were fashioned by an early member of the Homo lineage. Then in 2009 came a startling discovery in sediments almost 3.5 million years old. 2 small animal bones bearing stone-inflicted marks, cut marks and percussion marks that could have been made only by a purposely wielded stone. The possibility the markings were caused by animal teeth or the bones having been tumbled over rocks was tested and rejected. It was determined the marks had been made by stone used to deflesh the bones, and one of the bones was smashed to extract marrow. The 3.4 million year old date was crucial because there was only one hominin species in East Africa at that time, Australopithecus afarensis. The first tool users were Australopithecus, and nearly 1 million years before the emergence of the brainier early Homo. It could be stone was not shaped for tool use until much later, but it is clear our ancestors were using naturally shaped stone earlier than previously thought. More than 1 million years passed after the first Oldowan tools before changes were found in the archaeological record. Not only was stone being shaped with increasing skill and refinement, but a major technological change occurred starting around 1.4 million years ago, causing scientists to suggest significant cognitive growth was taking place. The first of these was the emergence of the Acheulean industry, in which both sides of the core were worked to create hand axes. The Acheulean was the first consistently bifacial industry. A bifacial hand axe requires the maker anticipate the final shape, work both sides using properly placed blows of the hammerstone, hard percussion it is called, giving it sharp edges and a grip to fit the hand. As we come closer to the present, soft percussion was employed, using a wooden stick to refine the edge. Archaeologists refer to the Acheulean hand axe as the Swiss army knife of its day, so many were its uses. The Acheulean persisted alongside the Oldowan in Africa, Western Asia, and the Levant for more than 1 million years before the next innovation, called the Levallois technique, occurred. Levallois, also called prepared core technique, appeared more than 250,000 years ago. It represents a cognitive uptick. The Levallois is a process of preparing the core by shaping the edges and then creating an improved striking platform. Successive flakes of similar size and shape can then be struck off. It is most clearly associated with the Mousterian, a Middle Paleolithic industry almost uniquely Neanderthal, although some Mousterian artifacts have been recovered at Homo sapiens sites in Africa and Southeast Asia. The next innovation was heat treatment. This occurred possibly as early as 164,000 years and certainly by 70,000 years ago in southern Africa. Heat treatment transforms poor quality stone into raw material of the highest quality, resulting in sharper edges and less wastage. It is a technological leap forward. The process requires burying blanks, the raw material, under a thin layer of sand, building a fire atop the buried stone, maintaining that fire at a constant high heat for a significant amount of time, then carefully removing fire debris and sand and allowing the blanks to cool. Heat treatment as a means of transforming the properties of stone is an innovative and complex process. South African industries based on heat-treated silkrete are the Still Bay, from around 70,000 years ago, and Howisson's Port, from around 65,000. Anatomically modern humans, our species, Homo sapiens, emerged in Africa around 200,000 years ago, eventually expanding throughout Africa. By 50,000 years ago, they were pushing into the Levant, and within 5 to 10,000 years after that, were fanning east and west into Asia and Europe. They brought with them the Aurignacian industry, a tool kit with many finely worked implements such as fine blades, needles, and awls. Later, hooks and barbs of bone are found. Noted authors Delson, Tattersall, and Vancouverring in their book The Encyclopedia of Human Evolution and Prehistory state, here paraphrased, "For more than 2.5 million years and until relatively recent times, stone tools provided our ancestors a technological means to a wide range of functional ends. These tools played an extremely important part in human evolution. Stone technology was an adaptation based upon intelligent innovations designed to meet the conditions faced by our ancestors." Unquote. Early tool makers found the Oldowan industry adequate for more than 1 million years and then developed the Acheulean. Another leap in visualizing end use resulted in the Levallois or prepared core technique. Rather more quickly thereafter came heat treatment to improve otherwise inferior material, followed by a wide variety of specialized implements including needles, awls, fish hooks, harpoon barbs, and compound tools. Compound tools were developed at differing times in Europe and Africa. A compound tool is an implement composed of 2 or more materials, such as stone and wood. Examples are hafting a point to a shaft, creating a spear, or slotting bladelets into a wooden handle to form a knife, and additionally, developing resins as glue and the use of sinew to hold the materials together. These adaptations and manifestations of cognitive growth built upon the tool industries we have described. They foreshadowed a creative burst that occurred around 35,000 years ago, well before the age of metal, producing the first examples of sculpture and shortly thereafter the cave paintings so stunning to modern eyes.